So today we're going to talk about race blind. Being like race blind. Okay, y'all don't know what is it, then I'll tell you in this episode lah.
You're listening to
Jom Sembang, Malaysia. I only say that because Judah was looking at me some weird lah. You have not heard of the word race blind, is it?
I know colorblind. My father was colorblind.
Really?
Race blind is when you do not you do not see people by their race lah.
Yeah. I actually wrote this, I won't say article because it's quite long. It's almost like 8,000 words kind of long. Not long enough, no, 8 to 10,000.
Okay.
Not long enough to be a book, not short enough to be an article, that kind of thing.
Cerpen.
Yeah, and it talks about how I was race blind since I was born lah.
Okay.
Like, I never noticed the Chinese, Malay, Indian or whatever-ness around me because we live in a kampung in Sungai Besi.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kind of races around us, and grandma who brought me up never ever pointed out like, hey, this one Indian hey, this one There was never that. So it was never in my DNA or my understanding that there is such thing called races until you go to school and then there's this fill in your race. And even then, I thought it's just, take your background. I didn't think that race was a big thing. I just thought of it as your background of like, okay, where you come from, you know, which clan maybe, the Chinese clan, Malay clan, that kind of thing. And then I grew up lah. I started to write Malay novels. That was when I suddenly wasn't that blind anymore.
Right, because people asking why this Chinese girl writing Malay novels.
Yeah, and I went, what's wrong with your question? Why can't it be like a Malaysian writing Malay? Like, so I remember when my first Malay novel came out, that was the biggest question everyone has. The journalists don't care what my book is about. They sit you down. Okay, the first thing in the interview is, by the way, why you write Malay?
Yeah.
Like, he never asked me why I like writing. He never asked me what my book is
There's
about.
like inconsequential.
Yeah, not important. This is like the most important question. And they cannot ask any other writers like that. Because not every so-called Chinese Malaysian write Malay lah. And I felt that, that was the first time I really felt that whole, the scales of my race blindness has fall off and now I'm no longer blind. So I thought we should chat a little bit more about this multiracial thing because it's something that is part of Malaysian DNA lah.
So I'm wondering, even as you're sharing that, whether I actually noticed, I'm sure you would notice that people are slightly different from you. They've got different practices, they look different, they celebrate different holidays.
I don't know that because my family celebrate every holiday.
That's true. But there are a lot of holidays that I didn't know what they were. You know what I mean? I would know Thaipusam, for example. Of course, because it's so graphic, right? You know what it is. But there's a lot of like Awal Muharram. I'll be like, actually what? You know?
Extra holiday.
yeah, to me it's just holiday lah. And I'm wondering, at which point, or did I ever notice that, okay, this one is different. This one is, Malay is like that, or Indian is like that.
But I also can say that I didn't notice that much is because when I grew up, my aunt married a Malay. So I have Malay cousins and we play together and everything. Yeah. And I think at the back of my mind or something, it never occurred to me why we never have pork. Chinese New Year. Because my cousins are older than me also, my Malay cousins. So when we grew up, Chinese New Year always have no pork one. So it wasn't like hey, where's the pork? It's missing. It wasn't like that. It was just, we just have our reunion and then which is seafood and then first day is vegetarian and then that's it. Yeah. And then after that, Hari Raya, we will go over to my aunt's house because she throws a Hari Raya gathering. And we eat lah. Actually, Hari Raya Haji lah, Hari Raya, all the Malay festival, we also celebrate as I was growing up. I don't even see the difference because to me it's together lah.
Yeah, that's true. So my Singapore, I always go to Singapore for Chinese New Year, right? Yeah. So I've got at least two cousins who married Muslim wives. One from Indonesia, one from Singapore. Okay. And even she has got like Arabic blood and Spanish blood and everything. And then we will have beef rendang. They will cook and bring also lah for Chinese New Year lah.
So our second day Chinese New Year is also Malay food. So it wasn't like a big deal lah in a way lah. And then I have my uncle who married a German lady. And my cousin is as old as me. And he actually has that Chinese Kong like campur lah. Masala look like that. And it never occurred to me until one day he came back from, he will visit us during Chinese New Year, a few days. He came back one day from his walk in Bukit Bintang. Hey, by the way, I just got signed up for ad. Huh? What ad? some talent fella said I look handsome enough to do a Maxis ad.
Maxis Ali.
Or something like that lah. I think it was Maxis.
Okay,
like, come on, it's like 15 years ago, so I don't mind saying it. So, and then he come back and then he told me it's because I look pan-Asia but not Asia. Then I was like, you just look Malaysian now, one of us. I think it was slowly building up to that whole like, as you grow up, right, you will grow up blind, race blind. But it depends on how you grow up that people start peeling off that scales.
I think I know when it started for me, probably. So when you were growing up, right, and then there was very, very clear, I'm not to be political, but you would see there's this MIC, MCA, and UMNO. Okay. I think that for me was the introduction of the different races in there. Like, one must have their own party one. And then, okay lah, we gabung together. I think for me that was probably...
quite interesting. Our politicians, our politics are also quite racist.
When I was small. I think that for me was the first time. Because you see on TV all the gatherings, they say, all gathering together. Yeah, for me that's
quite
probably
a big thing
visually,
for a first time, correct.
Visually see that lah.
That's quite an insight for me. Anyway, the other reason I wanted to talk about was that more and more people who are, racist, they say racist, not racist. But you see, people do marry other races now.
Yes.
More than before.
Yeah.
Like, I think my generation is like the beginning of everything. The beginning of really having mixed heritage.
Yes, no, not really lah.
So it's like it's almost like 50% of my peer group.
Okay lah, that's a lot lah. Last time
your peer group is like maybe one or two lah. It's still like, why this fella like this one?
No,
probably
quite a lot lah.
Out of 10?
Out of 10 lah.
It's quite rare, I think, your generation. By the way, you all must remember, we two from two different generations. Just
10 years lah, 10 years different.
Just because she hang out with me doesn't mean that she's as young as me.
No, I do have quite a lot of friends, even in my brother's generations, another 10 years above. Yeah, mixed marriages.
Quite a bit.
So it has become quite a norm.
Especially with the Gen Z now lah.
Yeah.
Lagi norm, they don't even look at the skin anymore.
Yeah.
So that would make Malaysia a little bit more multiracial than it already is. So after break, we'll come back and chat with a friend who is very, very multiracial that I lose track of how many races are in her blood.
Okay.
So if this is the first time that you are intending to write a song, or you have written something halfway, you have written lyrics only, no melody, or you have written melody, got no lyrics, we have something special coming up for you.
Yes, it is the songwriting retreat brought to you by Voxfest Malaysia. Basically, it's going to be in a very, very nice, refreshing environment called Beacon Resort. And you'll have both of us there to coach you in writing melody, writing lyrics, and just bring you through the whole songwriting process.
One thing I like to say is that when you walk away after 3 days, 2 nights, if you actually do your assignment while you're there with us, you can walk away with a song ready for demo recording.
Yes. So look it up. Voxfest Malaysia socials. That's Instagram and Facebook. And we're back. We have today with us a very interesting person. Her name already very interesting. It's Alia Alsagoff. Did I pronounce correct? No, the emphasis all correct places.
Yes, all correct.
All correct, huh?
Wow, impressive as usual, Juita Suito.
So the first time I was some time back, like Maxis lah. Actually, just I laugh when you said Maxis.
This conversation is not sponsored
by
Maxis.
Yes, it is not. But the question I asked her was, where is your name from? People always ask me also, like, why your name so interesting?
Okay, let's start with your name first before we go to her name lah. Okay,
I'm not multiracial, I'm multinational. I'm a multinational.
So with Juita, right, everywhere she go, right, then people will come up to me and say, by the way, she Indonesian.
Japanese Korean
Like, mostly it's
Indonesian. I don't know
Indonesian
why Korean, Japanese come lah.
Yeah. Or Korean because of the Suwito. Suwito can be very Korean or Japanese.
Correct.
So you're known for Korean, Japanese, Indonesian.
It's like, Yamamoto,
Yeah.
So my dad's Indonesian, my mom is Singaporean. But actually, if you trace back, it's all Chinese origin lah. It's just that my mom is Nyonya. So we don't speak Chinese. So it's a bit complicated that way. But that's all.
And she's definitely Malaysian. She's born in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So that's what Juita has in her
Okay, so now we come to Alia Alsagoff.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming.
I'm super happy to be here. I guess to your question on heritage, right? my last name, Alsagoff, a lot of people wonder, what are you? Are you Eurasian? Are you like Singaporean? Like, are you really Malaysian? I never heard this name before.
Right.
So maybe going...
I can't even pronounce it. That's why I asked Juwita to do the introduction.
Oh, pandai you.
So my family, Alsagoff, it comes from this area in Yemen. It's called Hadramaut. So apparently we have like Arabic ancestry, and they apparently came to Southeast Asia through, ships to come and do trading. Some of them stopped over in Indonesia. Some stopped over in Singapore. They did very well for themselves in Singapore, actually. They have like Arab schools and Alsagoff Street and all of that.
Wow.
Yeah, you have your own street.
Yeah, they have the school, they have a street. I was like, oh wow, somewhere far up the family tree. I haven't touched base with that Singaporean side of the family much. Okay. But then eventually they stopped over in Malaysia, and off they went, and that's where we ended up in. I understand some of our family members landed in Johor, but at least for my side of the family, born and bred in KL.
Okay. So it started with what? A trader?
Yeah.
And then
family
married?
of traders, and then so that was someone up high in my family tree. By the time it reached like my grandfather, he got married to a first wife was a Chinese lady. He had, I think, 2 or 3 children with them.
Wait, this was which century? Wait, grandfather?
Grandfather.
Okay. This is quite recent.
Fast forward already. Okay.
Let's just put it 10 years, 100 years, 100
Okay,
years.
but then wait, my grandfather actually came from China. So your
my grandmother came from China, Fujian.
Okay.
So she was first gen in Malaysia. So she wasn't my grandfather's first wife. She was actually the second wife.
Okay.
So she also had a previous marriage before she got married to my grandfather. Her first husband was a Chinese Christian.
Okay.
And she had 3 kids with them.
Okay.
One of the children got adopted by a Malay family.
Oi.
Yeah. So later I'll explain how this layer cake,
I like.
family layer cake came about.
Okay.
So then both of her former husbands passed away before her lah. She really outlived everyone. But essentially by the time she got together with my grandfather, she had 5 kids with them. Wow. So we have Malay mixed Chinese siblings, for my father at least, and then he had like Malay Chinese siblings and pure Chinese siblings, and then it's all one hodgepodge, and that's just on my father's side alone.
Okay.
On my mother's side,
all right, bring it on.
These are things that excite Juwita all the time.
So on my grandmother's side, her family ancestry, on her maternal side, there is Afghan and Minang. So Minang is Minangkabau on the Indonesian side.
Yeah.
Then her father is, what is it?
Wait, did you say Afghan?
Yes, Afghan is in Afghanistan.
Okay. I heard wrongly for a while.
No, you heard correctly. I did when I like, oh, this is totally different level now.
And then Minangkabau would be Negeri Sembilan?
Yes.
Okay.
And then my grandmother's ancestors, at least on the father's side, is orang Bugis.
Oi.
So when I looked at my on my mother's side, let me just call her Tok Wan, right? So ease the listener.
Okay.
So when I looked at Tok Wan's families, her siblings, older pictures, they really look Mak Saleh. Very fair, brownish hair.
Okay.
And I never really understood the concept of, what do different races, what are they supposed to look like? Because there's just so many different kind of people who look so different in Malaysia. And I thought like everyone has family members like this as well. On my father's side, my grandma on that side, we call her grandma, right? So whenever we had family gatherings, be it Raya, Chinese New Year, even her birthday back then, you had the full-on Arab Malay side of the family who would like wear the purdah, they cover up everything except their eyes. And then you had the Chinese, Christian, Taoist, Buddhist family members come as well, and they'll be dressed up in like their cheongsam lah, their Chinese traditional wear. And then me, I'm always like, oh, city girl, right? Just wear shorts and pants and then go and sit down in the restaurant. Every time someone comes to visit us, or or the waitress will come and order food, they'll always be like,
what's going on?
What's going on here, right? Or when we have these events in our homes, our family friends will come and be like, hey, Alia, ni semua siapa? Like, who's all these people, right? Like, you got so many friends on. I'm like, actually, you are some of the few friends that we invited. These are all family members. And they're like, this is all you punya family.
But I think it's interesting because people do that. This is your family. To me, it's because there's 30 people in the house. Why your family 30 people? But hers is like, not the amount of people. It's like, who
the
are all these people?
diversity in that 30 is like,
correct.
Wow.
The diversity of it. At least we are all wearing cheongsam people, or all wearing t-shirt people.
Yeah, so imagine that to be like the first gen, right? My grandparents' generation, then come to my parents' generation, they and their siblings also ended up marrying across
because it's such
different
a
races.
usual thing for you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, such a usual thing for your parents and their siblings. Since my parents also like that. So I just marry someone without thinking about the race, the kind of thing.
It's not like somebody's going to say, hey, she's dating a different race.
Because the whole family is really
campur.
Yeah.
So it's very unique. By the time you imagine it reaches my generation and my cousins, ada yang marry Mat Saleh lah, ada yang marry, like for me, I married an Indian guy. So my mom's like, yeah, I got all the collection already. Apa yung mapan semua ada. One Malaysia, this is one Malaysia, right? So she's really happy about that. but it's not like we go around looking for, hey, how do I expand like my family DNA into like other races?
I think
I'm really curious about, let's say culture-wise, right? So for example, let's say Peranakan is because there's a mixture of Chinese and Malay, and then they have a special culture like Peranakan. In your case, right, what kind of unique culture that your family has? Like, do they do the Chinese chamcha or do they do the...
Yeah, what happens at a wedding?
What is a typical birthday celebration like?
So I would say we still honor the traditional aspects, the cultural traditional aspects. Like if, let's say we're talking about my marriage, right? Malay-Muslim marriage to an Indian guy. We have two marriages lah. One will follow the Hindu style. One will follow like the Malay/Western style. We will still have the pelamin. We go up and sit and your relatives will come and, meet you, do the majlis merinjis, well wishes and so on. But assuming it's the Chinese cousins of mine that get married, we will still practice all the tea ceremony.
Okay.
Yeah, everything is still honored. But when it comes to like cross-culture celebrations, like your big ones like your Chinese New Year, Deepavali or Raya. Wow, really lah, semua pun ada lah. We want Chinese food, we want Malay food. If my Muslim relatives visit my Christian Chinese relatives, right, for Chinese New Year, my Chinese side of the family, they're very, very, I would say conscientious. They understand that, hey, feeding Muslim friends and family is not just simply about having things pork-free, but they also want to essentially understand, what makes something halal? How do you ensure something is halal and clean?
Correct.
So they put in the extra effort. If they say, hey, I want to cook for you, but normally I actually cook pork in my household, for example, they actually have a separate set of utensils
like
and cooking set just for us. So we get to still enjoy traditional Chinese food without, sacrificing on the flavors and so on and so forth. So that's really nice to see.
It's always an extra effort because like on our end also, because of my aunt family, right, the Malay family, we also make that extra effort not to like serve pork lah, even though it's Chinese New Year or whatever. So we normally ask, are you coming? Number one.
Right, yeah.
Okay, if they're coming, then definitely no pork. But if they're not coming, then okay lah, we might or might not have, just in case they last minute turn up.
Yeah, but having a separate set of utensils is
correct.
Quite
it's very caring.
It's very,
And we also have a separate set of utensils because we use it for vegetarian day. So after that, grandma was very smart. Then we just keep one vegetarian only, which is equals to halal. Then we are okay. Yeah.
Right.
So that became the tradition at home lah.
Cool.
Yeah, like when I sort of started getting to know my now husband's side of the family.
Like how you say my now husband.
Well, he wasn't my husband from before, so...
He's more curious. He just got worse, right? It's like, how many husbands do you have?
So his side of the family are Hindus and his mom, I think in recent years now, tend to be more on the vegetarian side. So all of us try to understand and cater more to her needs whenever we meet her or she comes over to visit. We started picking up dishes like typical recipes are, rendang, how do you make chicken and so on. But to look for vegetarian alternatives. And I think the beauty of technology these days, right, they have a lot of meat-free vegetarian options. But taste or texture-wise, it actually does mimic actual meat quite similarly. So we also have to put in effort, right, to understand the different sides of the equation on culture level.
Actually, right, come to think of it, right, it's also just being aware and like you said, conscientious. Because now you have people, not now but last time, now more. You have people who are also allergic to stuff, right? Allergic to peanuts, allergic to whatever. And I think at some point they were like, don't care lah, want to do just because one person cannot eat then. But I think nowadays there's that consciousness of, so and so cannot. So we all don't have peanuts or the gluten-free a bit hard lah. But
I think it's also come with cooperation and understanding.
Yes.
So for example, my family, like we do have a cousin who cannot eat peanut.
Yeah.
When I do the yisang, I lay out everything. I will put a small bowl for her without peanut and then I put the peanut for the rest. And she don't feel offended.
Yeah.
It's like because you cannot eat doesn't mean everybody can eat. So that person also has to be not offended lah.
Yeah.
If people cannot give you vegetarian, it's like I give you 2 vegetarian dish.
Yeah.
People have chicken, then you just eat your vegetarian dish lah. You know, don't make a fuss about, hey, how come you got chicken when I cannot eat? But I got serve you 2 vegetarian dish. I think it comes both ways. One, the part that being very cooperative about preparing it. The other part is the person himself have to be like, hey, there's a world bigger than my vegetarian world or my gluten-free world. You know?
Yeah. But it's also, I think, understanding and appreciating that it's who a person is.
Correct.
Right? And it's not like, nobody's trying to be difficult or whatever. It's just who you are and what your beliefs are and respecting that. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I have I won't say even uncle lah, adopted uncle. Okay, who's vegetarian.
Not your now uncle.
Vegetarian.
Sorry.
She just likes the kacang. So this uncle's vegetarian, but we didn't understand vegetarian back when I was 10-year old, right? So I'm like, the soup got no meat, what? Why cannot drink? The soup got no meat, what? But in his brain, there was dried oysters. Or there was dried anchovies, or even though it's sifted or whatever, it's so like, or there's egg. Like, but it's, then my 10-year-old brain go, egg is not vegetarian. No, so it depends on the level of vegetarian as well.
Yeah.
Then as the years goes by, we adjust. Our soup no longer have anchovies or whatever. We just need to put in more vegetable or something to make it more flavorful and work. So I think those are some ways. And he actually said, actually never mind, you all drink lah. You know, so that is, I kind of like that we put in some thought and the person is understanding.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's very hard to find that balance, I find.
Actually, I think it's also coming to understand, like you said, vegetarian, there's so many levels of vegetarian. But if I care for you enough, I would
ask you,
know why you are vegetarian. And, you know, is it because, no animals were harmed in the making of this? Or it's a health thing? Or where are you coming from? And I think, you know, religion and faith and race and all that is also that life. You understand why people don't do these things. Then that level of judgment really is not
correct.
I don't judge you for being who you are, but I understand. And I can disagree with you and then we can live together in the same house.
Yeah, correct.
Celebrate
After
together.
all, if you celebrate, you only meet once a year.
That's true.
I mean, you're not living every day with the person, right? For me,
you
right?
could be living every day with the person.
You could be lah. That would be your choice lah. That would be your
with
choice
your now
lah.
husband.
But I'm saying that because a lot of our multiracial family now, you know, multiracial country now become multiracial families in Malaysia, right?
Yeah.
You are definitely bound to meet someone that you don't live with, but because you married your spouse, then you come with this whole spectrum of things that we need to learn how to move around or navigate without stepping on toes.
Actually, you bring up a very good point, right? Because when you talk about, say, multiracial families, a lot of people think like, oh yeah, it's just as long as the bride and groom or the girl and the guy gets together and then, we'll be fine, everything is fine. But actually, no, right? When two people from completely different cultures get together, it's also about thinking of their families. Like, how do you help the families also come together and learn and put in effort to learn about the other party's culture? So
and then after that, once you get married, you need to decide how to raise up your kid.
Exactly.
Multiracial family is all about how you raise up your kid, right?
Yes.
Maybe it's so funny. It's so racist. I want to say maybe the Chinese one will do this, the Malay one, but that already sounds racist in its own. Yeah, but maybe the husband will do this and the wife will do this because they're from different background, right? Then that itself creates new culture and new culture and new traditions, which is what makes Malaysia special.
True. I have a question though. There are traditions and even faith things that will be contradictory. So, for example, some tradition, the woman's family will pay for all the expenses of the wedding. Some is the guy. So if you have, if you're marrying where both
colleagues,
if it's like, if mine is like, the husband pays and then the wife's side also, the wife's side pay, then they'd be happy to share because half. But what if it's like both like, shouldn't be the wife's side paying, and then it's like, shouldn't be the husband's side paying, then nobody's going to pay, then how? So there'll be contradictory traditions. And I think in faith, there will also be contradictory ones. So how do you guys settle this?
This is a really good, interesting question you posed, right? I've spoken to a couple of friends who are also coming from a multiracial family background or multi-faith backgrounds, and now they're getting together. So I think it's very important. I go back to the point I raised earlier about the two parties need to be very, very clear and talk all of these things out before they decide to tie the knot.
Yeah.
Because it's it's quite a complex thing to navigate around, and you have to be, I guess, sensitive about the other family members' view as well. At least in my case and my husband's case, we talk to each other and then we talk to each other's families as well, right? There are certain things, like for example, my husband would say, you know, before I asked for your hand in marriage, I spoke to your family about things that I'm very flexible on and definitely happy to support. But there will be things that I was raised under this culture. For example, my mother is still Hindu, and if she were to pass away, typically the sons in the family would have a ritual where they will actually basically, what's the term for it? There is a particular ritual that they will have to do, right? When the mother passes away. And he said, that is something that is a non-negotiable for me. And I hope that you understand that this is for the late memory of my mother, if and when it comes to that, right?
Sure.
So I think that's where it's important to have these dialogues with not just the person you're marrying, but their family members as well, to understand whether equally on the other side, are they going to be okay with it, right? Because if, let's say, touch wood, both sides are not okay with it, then at least you know that early and you can decide then what do you then do from there.
Yeah,
Rather
don't get there and then
don't like try to, you know,
fighting.
let's just go and elope and come back and deal with the mess when we come back. I wouldn't recommend that.
That mess would be too big, man. It's not even about where you stay, man. Family is something that you cannot avoid. I think in Malaysia it's something that you cannot cut ties easily in Malaysia, I feel. The country is too small and everything is too close-knitted for that to happen.
But it takes foresight to do that, because sometimes you're in like, everything is in the zone. Like,
correct.
Yeah, we're going to do this. But maybe you were a bit more mature when you got married. But if somebody in their early 20s
might not be able to see everything because they don't even understand the culture.
They don't even realize, they haven't even experienced.
Correct.
You know.
They were like, I want to get married, and then suddenly the mother goes, so by the way, there's this thing called dowry, then there's like, no, just sign the paper, done with me.
How are you going to raise your kids, right?
Correct.
Like,
correct. But I think the younger generation, the Gen Zs, have a rough idea of how they want to raise their kid because it's really based on their experience. I think all of us have a certain expectation of ways we want to raise our kid because of our childhood experience. Not so much of the traditional and culture coming into play yet, actually. Which is why when traditions and culture come to play, it just complicates something that was already complicated.
It's another layer of complexity.
Before your parents come in, because they all come with different personality and then add another layer. Like I like her way, kuih lipis lah. Like
kuih lapis.
Yeah.
And you try not to bring down those emotional traumatic baggage from previous generation down the next generation as well.
But at the end of the day, it's a very emotionally long, deep journey to actually create multiracial families.
But it does become very rich.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you also explain how our entire country is also struggling with accepting multiracial as our strength and weakness, because it comes with a whole complex mess that doesn't just affect us physically, but affect us more on the mentally and emotionally. Like you have to deal with it one. You cannot swipe it under the carpet, like she said. You know, it has to be dealt with kind of thing lah.
Do you think it's a thing that is, what's the word, in a season? Like, you know, in a cycle of a family or a cycle of a nation. Sorry, suddenly talking about national thing. Where now is the time when people are converging and coming together. And I don't know, maybe in 10 years' time won't be a thing. It's like we're all just Malaysian and we're just all...
I'm looking forward to that day. I think it has to happen where we start to slowly become from multiracial nation to a multiracial families, and then later on it will become flat, no more. It's too mixed up already. Then you just say I'm a Malaysian. I'm sure Alia do that. Hi, I'm just Malaysian.
But still, as celebrating those differences, I think. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a, like you said, flat country. Like if Alia didn't have all these like,
what I mean by flat is there's no longer
taste not there already. Not
correct.
Nice,
there's no longer an obvious Indian or obvious Malay and obvious Chinese is what I mean by flat. It's like everyone is so mixed up that we are all mixed and rich. That kind of thing. Which is not only a Malaysia thing, because if you look at overseas, US, UK, right, they are also beginning to explore the mixed marriage.
Yeah, I think they've gone through, they probably are already saturated lah.
Maybe yes and no lah. Like ours is more saturated is because we are close-knitted and we have more ethnic group to really multiracial.
To mix the pot.
Yeah. So to speak lah, I think lah.
Yeah.
But I think it cannot avoid it being the national thing that you were mentioning just now, right? Because when you come to all these policies, national policies have to change already. You cannot have policies that is... Yeah, that whole thing erase thing will tidak jadi, you know?
Actually, it's not even working now anymore.
Correct. It starts to don't work already. But you have stuff like, let's say, marriage policies, family building policies. All those have to be looked into again because it no longer fits into this square. The square is no longer a square, so to speak lah. But I don't see any politicians or people who stand up ready to start this process of, hey, we need to look at our national family building policies or
I vote for
policies. It's like, no, we vote for her. That you must speak to her first before you do any policies.
Actually, Gina brings up a good point, right? Like on one hand, like, yeah, you can sort of tell or channel our feedback to government to say things like, hey, you know, we are embracing more and more varieties in our culture. Like we're getting more, I guess, beyond tolerance, right? We are becoming more understanding of each other. Do we actually still need race-based policies? I think that's on the one side of the coin. But on the other hand as well, are there things that we all can do more of, right, as an individual rakyat lah? So I was just talking to my husband about some of these things. When we're talking about race-based policies as set by government, sure, that's one side of the coin. But on the other side of the coin, in our day-to-day, do we realize that sometimes because of our upbringing or maybe lack of exposure to, you know, different type of cultures, you can't blame your life circumstances where you were born, right? Maybe you were just born in an area where, it's just predominantly Malay or predominantly Chinese. So you don't think about all these things. But if you think about day-to-day social happenings, for example, I want to apply for a job, but the job description says, oh, you must be fluent in, say, Mandarin or Cantonese. But that role is maybe a basic waitressing role, for example. So you also kind of want to understand the context for that. Is that restaurant serving mainly Chinese clientele? Then yes, it makes sense. But if it's more targeting anyone and everyone, then, you know, having that kind of language requirement, are you then using that to sort of cut certain social strata out of the equation, right?
I find that language requirement, I'm still okay. It's the Chinese waiter only.
Yeah, right?
Or Chinese waitress only.
No,
like,
but she's saying sometimes people are using language in place of Chinese waiter only, but they say, oh, but you must speak.
Yeah, but also...
But then now a lot of non-Chinese speak Chinese also.
I kind of like the understanding part lah. Maybe I need a Chinese waiter because it's a Chinese restaurant that deal with pork lah. So, you know, that kind of stuff. So people have to look beyond that Chinese waiter only.
Correct.
They need to understand... what you try to say, right? Put a Chinese word there and tell you, by the way, we deal with pork. You sendiri pandai don't apply lah.
Yeah, because there are racial stereotypes, right? Whether we like it or not. Even in simple like things that may affect people every day. Like you're looking for a property. If you use, say, Gina's name or Alia's name, it'll be fine. But suddenly you use Sandeep's name and he's like, oh no, cannot, right?
Yeah.
So,
when it comes to renting and buying. Renting
that's very
or
real.
Actually,
yes,
that's very real. The name part. But anyway, another 5 years on, the name is so weird that we don't know what it is.
Become apple and strawberry.
Go.
Because like the younger generation, you see some of the names, you're like, can't even pronounce it. You know, got the hyphen one, the comma one or something like that. So you got so complicated that you don't even know what race they are or what gender they are sometimes.
I have a question though. Not so recently, over Chinese New Year, I remember there was this auntie who was telling us all about why people from China are very proud of the Chinese New Year last. So she was talking about Chinese things. Why the people in China are very proud of the Chinese in Malaysia. Apparently because we have kept the culture and tradition intact. Okay, so apparently there's this whole YouTube thing going on about China, people learning about their own tradition through the Malaysians.
Wow.
You know, so I'm like, really? We are
because
such...
they don't have yisang, and then actually they don't even have the cookies going on.
But that is our own invention lah. They are talking about things that they have lost through the communist sweep and everything, but that here know and practice that kind of thing. So then I'm thinking, okay, I really, really like this idea of coming together and, you know, merging. But then does that also mean that the richness of some of our heritage will eventually have to get lost? Or can there be together everything? Like your family, right? Have you seen the Yemeni, is it Yemeni, right?
Yeah.
Culture, you still see that intact and like, wow, we've preserved this. But then we can also preserve. Is it possible?
Actually, it's very much possible. It just depends on whether again, the younger generation, are they willing to learn about their
whether they're interested
heritage?
or not, one
are you
thing lah.
interested?
Yeah.
Also, on the other side of the spectrum, the older generation needs to, I guess, communicate in a fun way lah, right? What do I love about, my Yemeni culture versus my Malay culture versus my Chinese culture? Because when you're kids, you just want to have fun.
Yeah.
So teach them about the fun parts of the culture such that when they grow up, at least that's my experience, such that when you grow up, you start to get a lot more curious. Why do you guys have this celebration on this date? Why do we cook this kind of meals on this particular
but provided
celebration?
your elders can answer. Some elders can't even answer that now.
Now got Google ma.
But okay, true enough. You don't know whether Google is real or not. So like for example, those questions still pop up in Chinese New Year.
Yes.
Why I cannot wash clothes on the first day? Or stuff like that. And people are practicing it without really knowing. And you ask, sometimes even the elders of the elders don't know it. Just do lah. My father said one.
Then you lose the thing lah. It's like,
correct.
nonsense lah, just superstition lah. But then actually it's quite interesting lah if you know, it's quite fun also lah.
I think Ju put up a very good point, right? Because if you understand the meaning behind it, then the chances of your family or lineage preserving that heritage is much higher versus like, I just did it because my mom asked me to. Okay lah, then my kids will be like, Mom, do we still need to do it? Don't know lah, your grandma not around anymore. So no need to do lah.
So of course there's the old tradition, there's the new tradition. You know, sometimes you create new traditions, right? With new family and stuff like that. And there's the improvised tradition. Does improvised tradition considered preserving traditions? Improvised, for example, let's say, you all need to wear red clothes only. Now it's like, as long as it's new, can already, don't need red. It's still a way of preserving, but not fully. What are your thoughts on that? Silence.
At least for me, I think it's always nice to see new, I guess, cross-cultural, new kind of traditions being born. But again, it's important to also, for those who created it, to explain why did they create it, right? So that the young generation can also understand like, this was why they decided to do something in this manner. So for example, in my family, if we celebrate Chinese New Year, the older generation will be more gung-ho about, yes, let's dress up in red and traditional wear. The younger generation, it's up to you guys. We don't want to put you off, but if you want, we look nice in pictures. Or if not, yes. So kids will be like, okay, as long as we don't wear black, okay, go.
Yeah. That have been the case with my family lah. As long as you don't wear black. But nowadays,
and they also know why lah.
Yes.
Nowadays it's new clothes only lah. We have moved from no black to new clothes. As long as it's new, it's fine. Yeah. So for me, it's called improvise. Unless the young one will be like, I don't know, young people nowadays like to wear black one.
Emo generation.
Yeah.
Nothing else in the wardrobe.
Or learn how to become Steve Jobs. So yeah, that's interesting take on this whole multiracial kind of thing. Any last thoughts you have before we wrap up?
Last thoughts for me, I think we should all remind ourselves of the beauty of our own culture. I think it's also important, like Juwita and Gina said earlier, many of us just follow what our parents told us on certain days or certain superstitious rules. But we take it for granted. We don't really try to understand why it happened or it's asked to be done in a certain way. I think it's good for us to understand every aspect because then when you start meeting friends from different cultures, they will always want to ask you, why you all do this? Why you all cook this? Why you guys dress
Instead
like
of
this?
asking Dodo?
Yeah, so I was saying, actually I also don't know lah. Let me go ask my mom. You tak tahu kenapa you buat ni, right? So I think that's where beautiful discourse starts to happen. That's where you start to really understand the other side of the equation with the other races. Why do you do things a certain way? Got any pantang that I need to know about not, in your family culture? If it's my first time celebrating this, I don't really know what to wear, what to bring. Can you, advise me? So you don't make those kind of cultural faux pas by accident. Yeah.
So, Ju, any thoughts? Or last words?
No, I think Alia said it all already.
Okay, so be curious to ask if you don't know. Don't just, do what you've been told to do.
Yeah.
And be open lah to understand what other people are or why other people are doing what they're doing in their traditions. So
find out and don't why she like that one?
Yeah. Let us all embrace the multiracial families that is, mushrooming everywhere in Malaysia.
Jom Sembang Malaysia is hosted by two Malaysians who are passionate about Malaysian stuff.
Stay tuned every week for a brand new Sembang session with Juwita Suwito and Gina Yap Layong.
Today's episode is recorded at Studio 2105.
Remember to click like and subscribe for the brand new episode next week.